We've been sending out distress signals across the galaxy for months. Ambassador Litt's 4 arms trembled as he addressed the Coalition Council. No one answers. The void swarm devours another world in every cycle. The crystalline form of the ancient glint pulsed with a faint light. There's one signal we haven't called upon. Those from the world of death. Lit recoiled, horrified. They're more dangerous than the swarm. Perhaps, Glint replied. That's exactly what we need. The message came through on every frequency and in every language. Desperate. And of course, help us, please. They're coming. We can't stop them. For 3 days, the signal echoed across every communication network on Earth. Scientists, military leaders, and government officials gathered to discuss the unprecedented alien contact. Dr. Walker, head of xenolinguistics, shook her head. The message contains embedded translation matrices. It's designed to be understood by any civilization capable of receiving it. It was a true cry for help. In orbit above Earth, the battleship Terminus was on its routine patrol. Captain James Reed gazed at the blue planet below, unaware that his life was about to change forever. His ship was the newest in the Earth fleet, designed for deep space operations and armed with the weapons humanity had developed after centuries of internal conflict. Captain, his communications officer called, priority message from command. Reed straightened his uniform and walked to the main screen. The stern face of Admiral Wilson appeared. Have you heard about the alien signal?" the Admiral asked. "Yes, sir. The whole planet has heard it. We've decided to respond. The Terminus will be in charge of first contact." Red's heart leapt. First contact. The words humanity had waited for centuries. "Why are we, sir, a warship, not a diplomatic vessel?" Admiral Wilson's face hardened even further, because the message was a plea for help against something that was killing them. "If we're going to be in danger, I want our best ship there." Lieutenant Adams, the tactical officer, approached Reed after the transmission ended. "A first contact mission, sir. This crew was trained for combat, not diplomacy." Reed studied the star charts that showed their destination. "Perhaps that's precisely why they chose us. Whatever is out there has so terrified those aliens that they sent out a call across the galaxy." 3 days later, the Terminus was preparing to depart. The governments of Earth had united to make the decision to answer the call. This was humanity's chance to join the galactic community that might exist beyond the solar system. At the last briefing, Dr. Elisa Morgan, the ship's chief scientist, presented her analysis. "The signal contains biological markers that don't match anything in our databases. Whatever threatens these aliens is neither like us nor like them. It's something else entirely." Reed addressed his crew of 400 from the bridge. "We don't know what we're up against. We don't know who sent the message, but we know they need help, and Earth has decided to provide it. This mission could be dangerous. It will undoubtedly change human history forever." As the crew took their positions, Reed felt the weight of responsibility sink into his shoulders. Humanity's first step into the galactic community would be as warriors, not explorers or diplomats. The thought was daunting. "All systems ready, Captain," Adams reported. Reed nodded. "Activate thrusters." The Terminus vanished from Earth's orbit in a flash of light that, for an instant, outshone the sun, carrying humanity's deadliest weapons and toughest soldiers toward an alien plea for help. None of the Mindo of Tin-Chin could have imagined what awaited them, nor that the peaceful coalition of spacefaring species had summoned the one thing they feared almost as much as extinction itself: humans, the inhabitants of the world of death, forged on a planet that tried to kill them every single day of their existence. The galaxy was about to discover that this would be either its worst mistake or its only hope for survival. They arrived at the coordinates embedded in the message. A massive space station orbited a world of blue and green hues. The station's design was elegant, with sweeping curves and transparent sections that revealed gardens within. It bore no resemblance to utilitarian human vessels. "They're sending us a greeting," the communications officer reported. The main screen came to life, displaying a slender creature with 4 arms and iridescent skin. Its large eyes visibly widened at the sight of the humans. You came," the alien said, its voice translated through the same array that had decoded its distress call. "We hadn't expected a response from its species. I'm Captain James Reed of the Earth ship Terminus. We received your distress call." The alien's body trembled slightly. "I'm the lead ambassador of the Galactic Coalition. We sent our plea to every corner of the galaxy, but we never imagined the alien would stop as if gathering courage. We never imagined those from the world of death would respond." "World of death?" Reed asked. "Your planet is classified as a lethal world in our records, too dangerous to approach. Its gravity, atmosphere, pathogens, predators, and even the aggression levels of your own species. Everything is lethal by our standards." Reed exchanged glances with his officers. "Then why ask for our help, Ambassador?" Lit's 4 hands came together in what looked like a gesture of prayer. "Because what's coming toward us is worse than anything you can imagine. We call it the Void Swarm. It consumes everything in its path, and our weapons can't stop it." The Coalition station's hangar was enormous, designed to accommodate ships from hundreds of different worlds. The terminus looked out of place among the sleek, colorful vessels, dark, angular, and covered in weapons. Captain Reed led a small team toward the station. Ambassador L was waiting with a group of aliens, each stranger than the last. Some floated in the air, others walked on multiple legs, and one appeared to be made of living crystal. "Welcome to Harmony Station," said Lit, keeping a considerable distance from the humans. "Please forgive our caution. Your biology is troubling to us." Ree nodded. "We understand. We come in peace and to offer assistance." The crystal being stepped forward, light dancing across its transparent body. "I am Elder Glint of the Council. Your ship is a weapon." "It's a battleship," Reed answered honestly. "Built for defense and combat," a murmur rippled through the alien delegation. A small, 6-eyed creature fainted, collapsing into the arms of its companions. Lit's voice trembled. "Your entire ship is designed for war. We had heard rumors that the inhabitants of the Death World built such things, but to see it in person. You asked for help against something that is killing your people," Reed said. "What did you expect? Perhaps scientists, diplomats." Glint's crystalline form pulsed with light. "No, warriors." Dr. Morgan stepped forward. "I am a scientist, but I understand why you fear us. Our world forged us, to survive through force, but that same force could now protect them." Reed looked around the beautiful station. Everything was designed for comfort and beauty. There were no defenses, no weapons. These people had never known war as humans understood it. "Take us to your command center," Reed said. "Show us what we're up against." The central chamber of Harmony Station contained a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of green dots represented the worlds of the Coalition. An expanding red mass was consuming one edge of their territory. "The Void Swarm began at the edge of known space," L explained. "It's not intelligent like us, we understand, it simply consumes." Reed studied the map. "How fast is it moving?" "It's devoured 17 worlds in a single cycle," Glint replied. "Billions dead leaves nothing behind." "And your defenses?" Lieutenant Adams asked. The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. "We have deterrent technology," L said carefully. "Designed to deter aggressive species, it's not meant for warfare." Reed's expression hardened. "Show me recordings of the swarm." The holographic projection shifted to show a planet surrounded by what appeared to be a living cloud. Billions of insectoid creatures, each about the size of a small car, blanketed the world's surface. Plants, animals, and even buildings dissolved beneath their touch. "The swarm consumes all organic matter and turns it into more of itself," L explained, his voice trembling. Our weapons barely managed to slow it down. As Reed watched the footage, his expression darkened. The swarm wasn't just a threat to the coalition if it continued to grow at this rate. Sooner or later, it would find Earth, too. And when it did, quick pause on the feed. Before we continue this galactic journey, if you're enjoying this unique sci-fi experience, subscribe to the channel now and, most importantly, hit the notification bell. This way, YouTube's algorithm will ensure you don't miss upcoming videos featuring the most mind-blowing science fiction stories you won't find anywhere else. Now, back to our story. Hill signaled his team to halt. The scanner pulsed silently in his hand, each signal marking a potential death approaching, but then the signals shifted direction, moving away from their position. They weren't Iraq troops, just maintenance drones still following their programmed routes despite the chaos on the surface. Hill exhaled. They would live for now. Elsewhere in the colony, buried among failing systems and broken signals, Hengler knew they were losing. The smoke-shrouded horizon outside was proof enough, and he had one last task. He exhaled, forcing his hands to stay steady as he performed another system scan. There must be something left, muttered a repeater, a low-frequency channel, hell, even an old maintenance link. D'Enzo, still slumped against the bulkhead, just shook his head. If there were anything, you would have found it by now. Hengler ignored him, moving to another panel, digging through each system buried in the network for a bar of signal. Then too. He caught his breath. A burst of static crossed the speakers. Something was pushing through, and then the signal collapsed. It wasn't interference, it wasn't a fault. His stomach churned. Someone had cut it. D'Enzo caught the look on his face. It's bad, isn't it? Hengler didn't answer right away, just stared at the broken console, the error message flashing, and reality settling into his chest like molten iron. He swallowed. We're on our own. In the ruins of a cargo terminal, Sela Toguchi moved quickly, crouching low. The air was thick with dust and smelled of burnt plastic. She knew these streets better than no one. Every alley, every hidden passage between the storage yards. Her boots barely made a sound as she slipped along a broken fence, hiding behind an overturned transport. A Serac squad passed nearby, scanning the area. They moved in close formation, disciplined, cautious. Their weapons whirred faintly, loaded and ready. One of them stopped near the fence, his helmet tilting slightly as if listening for something. Sela didn't breathe. Her fingers gripped the metal bar she'd ripped from a destroyed chassis, feeling its weight, her balance. It wasn't much, but she wasn't looking to win a fight, just survive the next 10 seconds. The Serac hesitated for a moment, then kept moving. She counted 3 breaths before moving again. She had work to do. The colony's underground tunnels stretched deep, connecting warehouses, factories, and distribution centers. Places that didn't appear on official maps, places she knew like the back of her hand. And if there were still people alive, they needed routes to move unseen through the city. Near the destroyed defense barracks, Johnny Kov pressed himself against a wall, holding his breath. The alley reeked of plasma, burns, and blood. He could hear Sarek voices nearby, the sharp clicks of their language cutting through the silence of the dead streets. He adjusted his grip on the pistol he'd ripped from a soldier's corpse, a single magazine. That was it. He calculated the angles, the numbers, 3 enemies, a direct line of sight, suicide. But then, beyond them, movement. A man, no, a kid maybe 18, stumbled out of a side street, his hands half-raised, trembling with fear, a survivor who'd been foolish enough to expose himself. One of the Seracs turned, raising his rifle. Kov moved. A shot crackled in the air, sharp and deafening. The first Sarek fell instantly, the bullet piercing his neck through the small opening of his armor. COV was moving before the body hit the ground. The other 2 spun around, aiming. COV didn't stop. His shoulder collided with the second, deflecting the rifle. A plasma blast grazed him so close he felt the heat. He fired again at point-blank range. The third raised his rifle. A flash of movement. The kid had a knife. He didn't hesitate. He plunged it between the Sarek's armor plates in a savage, desperate attack that brought them both down. Kov didn't wait to see the outcome. He ripped the rifle from the second body and ended the fight with a single shot. Silence. The boy gasped, his eyes wide, the knife still embedded in the alien's chest. His hands trembled. Cobb grabbed his shoulder. "Are you still breathing?" A nod. "Good, now you're coming with me." The boy swallowed. "Where are we going?" Cov pulled an extra magazine from a fallen Sarek's belt and loaded it into his weapon. To find more people who were still alive. Before he could move, a figure emerged from the shadows in front of them. Kov raised his rifle in an instant, then lowered it. Toguchi appeared, wielding a metal bar, her eyes scanning the boy, the bodies on the ground. There were no hesitations, no wasted words. She nodded once. Cov nodded back. Whatever fight she had been through, she had already made up her mind. Without a word, she stood by his side. 6 battleships formed a defensive line, while behind the minions, the research vessel began mass production of Dr. Morgan's pathogen. Coalition representatives watched with horror and fascination as the humans prepared for war with an efficiency that spoke of centuries of practice. Weapons were checked, warships were resupplied, and missiles were loaded with the biological agent. "The PAI, the first wave of the swarm, will reach us in 12 hours, General Harris announced during the last meeting. Our strategy is simple, hold the line and deploy the pathogen. If Dr. Morgan is right, we'll see results in a few days." Ambassador Lid addressed the human commanders solemnly. "The coalition has existed for 3,000 years without the need for weapons of war. Today we witness methods that challenge our deepest beliefs, but we have no other choice. We thank you for your help, even if your methods terrify us." Ree nodded respectfully. "Sometimes survival requires doing terrifying things, Ambassador." 3 days later, the first engagement with Mil-Aten, the swarm, began. Human warships fired their missiles at the approaching biological cloud. The pathogen dispersed exactly as Dr. Morgan had predicted. For the first time in its existence, the void swarm retreated. The planet Ilias slowly rotated under a red sun, once home to more than 5 million coalition citizens. Now it served as the front line in humanity's war against the void swarm. Coalition ships filled the skies, transporting civilians to safety, while the human fleet established a defensive perimeter around the evacuation zones. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching the last transports load. His combat armor was scratched and dented after 3 weeks of fighting. Beside him, 50 human soldiers prepared their weapons and equipment. "How many more to evacuate?" Rivera asked the coalition coordinator, a tall, insect-like being named Trill. 6,000, Trill replied, his mandibles clicking nervously. "But our sensors are detecting swarm activity approaching from the north. They've adapted to the pathogen faster than expected." Rivera nodded grimly. Dr. Morgan's bioweapon had worked wonders initially, but the swarm was evolving. Each new generation showed greater resistance. "We'll stop them," Rivera said. "Just make sure you get your people on those ships." Trill's compound eyes reflected the setting sun. "They can't stop them with so few soldiers." Rivera checked his rifle. "We're not like you. We're used to fighting against the worst odds." The radio crackled, "Lieutenant, swarm units sighted 5 miles away and closing in fast." "Move into position," Rivera ordered his team. "Remember, target the nodes. They're still vulnerable there." The human soldiers deployed along the ridgeline overlooking the evacuation site. The planet's hostile environment, thickened air, high gravity, and scorching heat, had already claimed the lives of 2 members of Rivera's team, but the remaining soldiers had adapted, using the harsh conditions to their advantage. "Here they come," Sergeant Cooper shouted from her observation post. Thousands of them. Rivera raised his binoculars. The horizon darkened as the swarm drew closer. A twisting mass of chitinous bodies flowed like liquid over the rocky terrain. Wait until they cross the marked line, Rivera instructed. Then unleash everything we've got. The first wave of the swarm crossed the invisible boundary. Rivera gave the signal, and the ridge erupted in gunfire. Explosive munitions tore through the alien mass, each blast destroying dozens of creatures, but for every one that fell, 10 more sprang up behind it. They're adapting to our attack pattern, Cooper shouted over the roar of gunfire. They're changing formation. Rivera watched as the swarm split into 3 groups. One continued the frontal assault while the other 2 attempted to outflank the human position. They've never done that before, he muttered. They're learning. For 3 hours, they held the line while evacuation ships filled up and took off one after another. Rivera's forces suffered heavy casualties, 20 dead, 15 wounded. The last transport has left, Trill announced over the radio. All civilians evacuated. Rivera looked down at his remaining forces, bloodied, exhausted, but still fighting, retreating to the extraction point, mission accomplished. Aboard the Terminus, Captain Ridd received the report of the evacuation of Ilias with mixed feelings. Another world saved, but at a very high cost. The swarm is adapting faster than we anticipated, Dr. Morgan explained during the emergency briefing. Each new generation shows more resistance to our methods. I've analyzed the most recent samples. They're evolving new protective membranes specifically designed to resist our pathogen. General Harris's hologram flickered on the table. How long before our current weapon becomes ineffective? 2 weeks, 3 at most, Morgan replied. I'm working on modifications, but they learn too quickly. The strategic display flashed. The swarm's red mass had slowed its advance, but it hadn't stopped. We're buying time, not the war. Perhaps that will be enough, Ambassador L said quietly. Every day allows thousands more of our people to reach safety. The crystalline form of the ancient glint pulsed with a faint light, but at what cost? Its strength dwindled with every engagement. The coalition had never faced losses of this magnitude because they had never truly fought, Lieutenant Adams said, weariness evident in her voice. After weeks of continuous combat, even the human soldiers were reaching their limits. Dr. Morgan stood abruptly. I need to approach this differently. The pathogen was only a temporary measure. We need something that attacks their entire network simultaneously. What are you proposing? Reed asked. I've been studying the swarm's energy patterns. They're attracted to thermal radiation. That's how they find habitable worlds to consume. Morgan activated a different screen, displaying a massive gas giant at the edge of coalition space. This is Hyperion, a gas giant composed primarily of hydrogen and helium. The perfect materials for fusion. The coalition representatives murmured in confusion, but Reed understood immediately. You want to turn it into a star, he said quietly. A controlled fusion reaction, Morgan confirmed. The thermal pulse would act as bait, drawing the entire swarm toward Hyperion. When enough of them have gathered, we detonate the planet's core, Reed added, creating a stellar-level event that would annihilate them. The energy release would be equivalent to a small supernova, Morgan said. Nothing within half a light year would survive. The Coalition Council erupted in protest. Elder Glint's voice rose above the others. This is unthinkable. Hyperium's moons have research outposts. 3 nearby systems would be devastated by radiation. We cannot commit such an act of destruction. Red stepped forward, his patience worn thin after weeks of battle. The swarm will reach their homeworlds in 15 days. How many billions more will die while clinging to principles their enemy does not share? General Harris nodded in agreement. All conventional options have failed. The swarm adapts to everything we throw at it. This may be our only chance to end this. Ambassador Litt stepped forward to the center of the room, silencing the arguments with a gesture. I have seen humans fight and die for people they never knew. Their methods disturb us, but their sacrifice is real. He turned to Elder Glint. We must consider Dr. Morgan's plan. The debate lasted 6 hours. Coalition scientists analyzed Morgan's proposal, searching for alternatives. They found none. Someone will have to manually activate the catalyst after confirming that the swarm. They've assembled, Morgana Reed explained. The radiation will make remote detonation impossible. Reed studied the mission parameters. A suicide mission. Whoever activated the catalyst would have, at most, a few minutes to escape the initial shockwave. I'll lead the activation team, she said simply. Morgan looked up in surprise. Captain, the odds of survival are negligible, Reed interrupted. This is our only chance. I won't ask anyone else to do it. As preparations continued, the swarm seemed to sense the trap. Their advance toward the coalition homeworld slowed as units began moving toward Hyperion. It's working, Morgan whispered, watching the sensor readings. They're responding to the thermal decoy. Reed gathered her volunteer crew, 15 men and women who knew they might not return. Ambassador Led approached as they boarded the small, fast ship that would take them to Hyperion. Their willingness to sacrifice themselves. The alien struggled for words. We don't have a concept for this in our language. Ree smiled slightly. We call it courage, Ambassador. It's what we Deathworlders do. The largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the Coalition was advancing into swarm territory. 6 human battleships formed the core, surrounded by hundreds of Coalition transport and support vessels. The plan was simple, but dangerous: break through the swarm's outer defenses, reach the breeding world, and deploy Dr. Morgan's team to collect samples before withdrawing. Standing on the bridge of the terminus, watching as the first swarm defenders appeared on sensors across all ships, she ordered the Coalition ships to fall back to a safe distance. This is where we show our courage. The human ships moved in formation, activating their weapon systems with trained precision. The swarm responded by sending thousands of smaller units to encircle the fleet. They've never coordinated like this before, Lieutenant Adams observed. They're evolving tactically. Then so will we, Reed replied. Execute the Delta pattern, target their highest concentrations. The human ships broke formation, each taking a different attack vector. Their weapons tore through the swarm, creating temporary breaches in the living wall of creatures. Main gun loaded, the weapons officer reported. Aim for the center of mass and fire, Reed ordered. The terminus shuddered as it fired its main gun. A brilliant beam of energy sliced through the swarm formation, instantly vaporizing thousands of creatures. The other human ships followed suit, and their combined firepower blasted a path forward. For 6 hours, the battle raged through space. 2 human ships were destroyed, their crews evacuated to Coalition vessels as the swarm overwhelmed their defenses. But the strategy worked. They managed to break through to the breeding world. We're in position, Reed announced to Dr. Morgan's team. You have 1 hour on the surface. The small stealth ship Firebreak approached the turbulent surface of Hyperion. Through the windows, Captain Reed and his 14 volunteers gazed at the immense gas giant, its atmosphere seething with storms larger than Earth itself. But it wasn't the planet that held their attention. The space around Hyperion was teeming with the enemy. Billions of swarm units had gathered, drawn by the thermal decoy designed by Dr. Morgan. The plan was working perfectly. Final approach, Lieutenant Adams announced from the pilot's seat, her hands moving firmly on the controls, despite knowing this could be her last mission. We'll reach the insertion point in 5 minutes. Red addressed his team. Once in position, we'll have 30 minutes to plant the catalyst devices and withdraw to a safe distance. He paused, looking each of them in the eye. If we succeed, the galaxy will live. If we fail, the swarm will continue until nothing remains. No one needed to mention the slim chances of survival. Everyone had accepted the risk by volunteering. The firebreak plunged into Hyperion's upper atmosphere, using the planet's storms as cover. Swarm units flew past, failing to